Hello everyone! Today I'm taking a break from the adventuring, questing, and progress to teach you the basics of gathering supplies for making various items in your workshops. Now, this is a completely optional part of the game, since they give you plenty of weapons, armor, and magical musical instruments at the shops that you can just buy. But by putting in a bit of time and effort, you can easily make loads of equipment that far surpass anything you'll ever find in the shops. So let's get started. In your inventory, aside from equipment like weapons, armor, and instruments, all items are categorized as either primary or secondary. Primary items are used for creating equipment, and secondary items are used for upgrading equipment. Now, how good the item turns out to be depends on what you choose to make and what primary material you make it from. Also, if you're going to be upgrading your equipment with secondary items, certain primary materials come with inherent essence levels and other properties that are more conducive to being upgraded. And the whole concept of upgrading equipment is so deep and complex that I could make an entire series of videos talking about elemental essence levels, stat boosting, status effects, and mystic effects. In fact, there are tempering recipes that you can look up, which, if you're willing to put in the time to gather the items necessary for them, you can make weapons with over 800 attack power, which I've heard is strong enough to kill the final boss on the hardest difficulty with only one attack. And to me, that would just make the game disappointingly easy, so I really don't bother with that. That's why I'm not really going to get into upgrading, because I never really bother with tempering weapons or altering armor that much. I'm just going to be making equipment from the primary materials that give me the best immediate results without needing upgrades. But if you really want to get into equipment upgrading, there are plenty of guides you can easily look up that will tell you everything you ever wanted to know about that whole process. Or you can just look up recipes that will tell you what you need to upgrade your equipment without having to understand the intimate details of how the whole process works. Now, for musical instruments, there are no upgrading options, but the basic construction is slightly more complicated. First, you have to choose what instrument you're going to create, whether it's a harp, marimba, flute, or drum. Then you have to choose what primary material you're going to be creating your instruments from. Then you select the elemental coin, which will determine what magical powers it has. So before you even attempt to create your own instruments, you first have to buy some from a store, because you can't make your own instruments without elemental coins, and the only way to get them is by playing music for elemental spirits. So, when it comes to playing music for spirits, the first thing you have to do is pick a song that the spirit you want coins from actually likes. If you lure the spirit close enough to talk to it, you'll be given 3 coins, usually all silver. But if the spirit is really impressed by your music, it might give you a gold coin among the 3. Gold coins are the ones you really want, because instruments made with gold coins are always better than ones made with silver coins. So after you choose the song you're going to play, you have to pick what instruments to play with. Now, for the longest time, I had thought that my chances of getting a gold coin were better if I used as many instruments as I possibly could. 4 in the front playing the melody line, and 4 in the back playing the harmony line. But I recently found out that your chances of getting gold coins are actually better if you use instruments with the same element as the spirit you're playing for. So using nothing more than an earth drum to play for a gnome is more likely to get you a gold coin than having a full orchestra of instruments with various other elements. Now, you want to have at least 1 gold coin from each of the 8 elemental spirits, and I'll explain why later. So, without doing any upgrading, the primary material that gives you the best weapons is adamantite, which you can only get from chest knights. The overall best material for making armor is dragon scales, which you can get from land dragons and sky dragons. And the best material for instruments is Dior wood, which you can only get from woodings. And since the best materials can only be obtained from enemy drops, you need to understand how the item drop system works in this game. It's not like most RPGs where each enemy only has 1 possible item drop. In Legend of Mana, every enemy has 8 possible drops. The first and sometimes second ones are always experience crystals and money, while the others are items of increasing rarity. Now, the first 4 are available no matter what, but the 5th through 8th will only be dropped if the enemy is at a high enough level. And the level of a monster is determined by the area they are in, how late in the game that area was established and how far that area is from your house. So the later you establish an area and the further it is from your house, the more leveled up the monsters will be. In order to get the 5th drop, enemies have to be at level 16 or higher. For the 6th drop, level 32 or higher. 48 or higher for the 7th, and for the coveted ultra-rare 8th drop, enemies have to be at level 64 or higher. Now, getting enemies at that high a level your first time through the game is going to be nigh impossible. But luckily that won't be necessary thanks to one particular pet monster that you can get called the Polterbox. This living treasure chest, which can hatch from poltergeist eggs, has a synchro ability called Rare Item, which pulls down the level requirements for item drops a couple notches. So, if the synchro ability is active when you kill a monster, it's possible to get the 5th and 6th drops at any level. The 7th at level 16 and the 8th at level 32. It still depends somewhat on how you lay out your areas, but getting level 32 monsters your first time through the game is much more plausible than 64. However, since grinding for those ultra-rare items is now dependent on having a pet, you need to understand a bit about raising them. Now, poltergeist eggs can be found either in the junkyard, in the one place where you fight boss monsters, or in the Tower of Lairs, way up on the 11th floor in the Room of Fate. Once you get one that hatches into a polterbox, you need to start feeding it to give it the personality you want it to have. Each pet gets its own feed box, which can hold up to 3 different foods, which will all be eaten the next time that pet levels up. Now, although changes to a pet's stats don't take effect until the pet levels up and actually eats the food, personality changes take place as soon as the food is in their box. And to check what personality your pet has, just send it out to graze and then go out and pet it. Now, there are 2 ways to level up your pet. Either put it outside to graze while you visit other lands and kill monsters, or take it with you while you kill monsters. If you choose to take it with you, be sure to wear the Forbidden Ring, or something with the mystic effect Fertility Goddess, so that experience points that you gain will also be shared with your pet. Because relying on pets to pick up their own crystals can be very tedious and frustrating. Because they're fucking morons. Also remember that even if you feed your pets nothing, their stats will still increase on their own. But which stats go up and how often depends on what type of monster it is. And don't worry about feeding your pets produce that has negative stat effects on it. That just means that your pet won't gain anything in that particular stat the next time they level up. It does not mean that their stats will go down. Your pet's stats will never go down no matter what you feed them. At least, not in the version I'm playing. Because you want to exploit its synchro ability, you want your polterbox to be either friendly or lonely so that it stays close to you at all times. So when you start feeding it, only give it foods that only increase friendliness or loneliness. Feeding it produce that also promotes other personality traits might cause it to manifest unwanted behavior. Don't worry about how these foods affect their stats, because that can easily be corrected later. But once a particular personality type is established on your pet, it can be very difficult to change or remove that behavior. Once your pet has the personality type you want for them, then you can change its diet to give it the stats you want. So, once you got your polterbox, given it the personality you want, and leveled it up enough so that it can actually take some damage without dying every 5 seconds, and also established a land where the monsters that drop what you're after are at level 32 or higher, now you're ready to begin grinding for that ultra-rare primary material that you can make your amazing new equipment from. But even with all this going in your favor, the odds of getting that 8th drop from any enemy are still very slim. Although you could get lucky and find what you're after in just a few minutes, you'll most likely be grinding for at least an hour before you get even one piece of adamantite or dragon scale or whatever. And rather than spend weeks mindlessly grinding enemies, you'll most likely be willing to settle for just making 1 or 2 items from these rare materials and then move on. But what if I told you that you could make a completely endless supply of any equipment you wanted from just 1 piece of any primary material in the game? Fuck you, you're full of shit, that's what you'd say. Well, to that I say, fuck you, I am not full of shit. This shit is real, and I'm gonna prove it to you, you skeptical bitch. And that's exactly what I'm gonna do. Next time, I will show you how to make unlimited weapons from 1 piece of adamantite, unlimited armor with 1 dragon scale, and unlimited instruments with just 1 piece of Dior wood and 1 gold coin from each of the 8 elemental spirits. Although I shouldn't say completely unlimited, since the game only allows your weapons, armor, and instruments to have a maximum combined total of 100. But still, that's more than enough room to have 1 of everything with plenty of room left to spare. So, next time I will teach you everything you need to create a near endless supply of equipment from just a single piece of any primary material in the game. See you then!